Context is key when working with AI, which is why VS Code and GitHub Copilot support various means to provide information about what you're building and how you're building it. Asked naively to create a service for fundraisers for a website that I'm building, we can see numerous errors in the generated code as Copilot was forced to make assumptions since it didn't know how things were being built in the back end. One way we can handle this is by creating a Copilot instructions file which applies to the entire project. For more granular scenarios, we've also introduced prompt files which allow you to include context for specific operations. In this case here, we've defined one for how we want our services built. We reference the schema file using the hashtag file, preferences on the code generation, and even a template of how we want a new service to look. Let's try that code generation again, this time with the prompt file. We can see Copilot follows the instructions provided and is able to generate code the way we want it structured, how we want it. All of this thanks to the new prompt files.
Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever in the world you are joining us. Welcome to Open Source and AI. Thank you for being here. Where are you joining from? I'd love to know where people are tuning in from. I feel like I was just here because I was. And in case you missed our transmission yesterday, we had a really interesting conversation with Ahmad Awais, the founder and CEO of Landbase. So I will drop a link to that conversation later in case you're interested in that. You can go ahead and take a look. But welcome to Open Source and AI. Today, I have a super awesome guest, someone that I've actually just met face-to-face a moment ago, but we've talked before online. But hey, internet friends are real friends. And he's got a remarkable career, but even more remarkably is all the things that he does for the community and how important his work is and impactful. Not only at his day job, right, which is what we're here to talk about this Labs, but also just on a personal level, like he's fantastic. So our guest today is Danny Thompson, who is the Director of Technology at this Labs. And if you're here, maybe you read the description, maybe not. We're going to talk about some work that they've been doing with the world's largest online encyclopedia, Wikipedia. And it is my absolute pleasure to have you here today, Danny. So nice to see you. Hi, welcome. I forgot to say you're a podcaster, you're a content creator, you're a community organizer, you're a conference organizer too.
This is true. All factual statements. I am all of those things. I am Danny Thompson. I am the Director of Technology at a company called This Labs, as the intro said. and we do a lot of stuff. What's funny is I often say we solve some of the most interesting problems for companies, because some of the projects that we get, we can't even talk about publicly because of
Oh,
how different and interesting that they are. And so whenever I do get stuff that we can talk about, like this Wikipedia project, that's definitely something that I get to geek out about for a bit. But we've actually gone viral on the internet many times for work that we've done, but no one knows it's us. They just know that the companies did it.
get out. Okay.
Yeah,
Could you share one of those? I mean, first of all, if I not read this case study, which I'm going to share with our viewers now, I would not
sure.
known that you were working for these folks. But please do tell, like, is there one that kind of surprising for folks to know that this was this.lab work?
Yeah, I think one that shocks a lot of people when I mention it is we are a core contributor to the React documentation with the React team. We worked with,
You are?
yeah, we're even mentioned on the React documentation on the teams page. So we are there. We were a big factor in that. A lot of people don't know that. We've done work with a lot of organizations like Google, GitHub, Microsoft, etc., Stripe. We work with a lot of those organizations and supporting their teams, partnering with them on projects. We just did something with Vercel, which is really, really cool, and hoping to obviously continue doing more. But we're pretty well stretched out within the sphere technology with organizations, but even working with companies that necessarily aren't technology forefront and focused, like healthcare companies like CVS and pharmaceutical companies and things like that. So we do a lot in that regard.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that is surprising. I did not know that you were a core contributor to React. That's epic. And just looking through the website, and folks, this is the website. Go check out this.co. You do a lot. This company does consulting, development, assessments, training, and I know you have a media offset because a lifetime ago, I was fortunate enough to be invited to be a guest on that. There's a podcast, or there was.
There is.
Yes. Okay, we have to share all of those links as well. But let's dig into what we're here to talk about. But before we do, we say podcast. Can you please quickly tell us about your podcast? Because it's so good, y'all. You have to take a listen. Please tell us about your personal podcast, and then we'll dig into Wikimedia.
Yeah, so I'm the host of several podcasts. You mentioned the media arm, so I have to mention we have two podcasts at this.labs. One is Modern Web Podcast. It's almost 7 years old. It's a top 30 in the world, I believe, for JavaScript. Extremely popular. We're putting out constant content, have some really great guests on there, like topics and conversations. It's not necessarily what you would consider entry level. It's significantly higher up. So if you're an established developer with a lot of experience, or you're trying to get to that level, it's probably the kind of content for you. If you're brand new to development, you might not necessarily grab everything, but it's worth a listen to kind of check out the other side. Then we have the Leadership Exchange, where we interview CEOs, CTOs, CFOs of organizations about how they've solved problems, scaled issues, and kind of built their companies up to the levels that they're at, which is really interesting from the business perspective, not really technical. So if those are the kinds of conversations you're interested in, totally go for that. Then, of course, we have the Programming Podcast with I and Leon Noel. Yesterday, we found out that we are number 44 in the world for technology podcast.
Nice.
And it's kind of very sudden because we've only been doing the podcast for, 2.5 months? And so it's just kind of exploded in popularity and growth, and we're just so happy that people are finding a lot of enjoyment in it. The feedback has just been next level, from the comments and the emails and the DMs and posts on social media where people are tagging us in it, talking about how they've shifted things based on the advice, and they've seen results almost immediately. And so for that, that's huge, because for us, we just started as somewhat of, like, I guess, a joke to it, in a sense. We were talking at a conference about doing a podcast, and that joke became, well, why don't we do that? And next thing you know, it just kind of spiraled out, and pretty happy that it turned out the way that it did.
I'm super thrilled for you, and it's a really good podcast, friends. You have to go in and give it a listen, and give a listen to the This.Lab podcast as well. There's a little bit for everyone there, so that's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your career at This.Lab first. You're the director of technology, and there's obviously like incredible range of projects that This.Lab works on. this project that we're going to talk about today came to my attention because you actually released a case study about
Yes.
it basically it caught my eye because we're helping an enterprise, a company like Wikipedia. Everyone here knows what Wikipedia is, but if not, we're going to tell you and what the Wikimedia Foundation is. So they are the nonprofit organization behind Wikipedia. And everyone, I hope, knows what Wikipedia is. And if it's not, you can go check it out. It's I don't know how to describe Wikipedia. It's the world's largest encyclopedia online. Like, what would you say? TLDR about what Wikipedia does.
I think that's an amazing description, where if you are searching for information, they are an amazing resource to kind of utilize. The vast majority of the content on their platform is not AI generated content, but it is submitted content by contributors who either believe in the mission or they feel like there's content that needs to be there. And we're going to kind of talk about this for sure in a moment, kind of highlighting some of that. But for the vast majority of it, if you're looking for information that's been vetted, Wikipedia is often a place to look for it, because they not only give the information, but resources and attributions to that content so you can confirm whether it's legitimate or not.
Okay, awesome. And it's crowdsourced, right? So it's very much like open source, but then there's also open source that they use. And that's how you 100% can make sure that you're not just getting the paid versions of whatever stories people are telling out there.
Correct.
But it's a great source of truth. So thank you everyone who's joining up. I was just giving it a few moments for some folks to join in. But Sam, I'm going to share the podcast links all on the chat here. And bear with me because it's just one of me, but I will get to it. No worries. All right. So Danny, tell me about this project. What was the need that the Wikimedia Foundation had? And where did this lab get involved?
Yeah. So I'll kind of give some background into this. And so we were very lucky and appreciative that we were even able to partner and support anything that we can. And we've done quite a few projects with them. We're still doing continuous ongoing work with them. They're just an amazing organization. We love the mission. We love the teams, and we love the developers. So it's just been really great all around. And so we definitely can't take all the credit for this at all, because that's definitely not the case. But we're just happy that we can support in whatever capacity that we can. And a lot of this has been led by Danny Thompson. And Danny, he previously was at Google, and I believe it was in right after the pandemic started in 2020. He joined Wikipedia as one of their leads for the Wiki Functions project, which is pretty much the core of everything that we're talking about today. And so Danny, huge kudos to him. He kind of led that entire initiative, and he's been a very avid educator when it comes to how we can utilize this. And so to give you some stats that I said that we were going to give, because I'm very big on, you can have opinions on everything, but if we have facts to support it, this is a very great way to kind of showcase what it is that we're doing. So when you look at Wikipedia as a whole, Wikipedia is not necessarily one project, like where everything is just culminated, combined together. It's really the culmination of 300 plus different projects supporting each other and combining. And so with that, one of the projects is the English version of Wikipedia. And so the stats that revolve around this is the English language on Wikipedia dominates heavily compared to any other language or project on the Wikipedia side. To give you an idea, roughly, Wikipedia has right around, give or take, 300,000 monthly contributors. So these are 300,000 people that are contributing articles and content to the website in the English form. And roughly 7 million articles are submitted on a monthly basis in the English language, right? Which obviously, to a certain degree, English is widely spoken. A lot of the educational content is consumed, but that doesn't mean this negates the needs for education or resources throughout the rest of the world. And so to kind of counteract that a little bit, when you look at a language like Hausa, which is a language spoken in Africa, they have roughly 200 monthly contributors. And they have roughly around 55,000 articles, even though the language has 88 million speakers. So there's a wealth of individuals that need access to resources, but because they don't speak the language, they are almost denied that resource. So the only way they could possibly get educated on those subjects would be to perhaps learn English, and then possibly consume that content. That's not necessarily an ideal path for everyone, because regardless of how you see the English language being spoken anywhere in the world, there are people that are being educated other languages that may not necessarily have the motivation, needs, or desire to learn English in order to learn further content. And so the focus here for Wikipedia was, how do we make this content more accessible to everyone? And this kind of spurred on the idea of utilization of wiki functions and NLG, which is natural language generation. And so how do we implement this throughout the website? And so the idea was, if we start implementing wiki functions throughout our articles and our website and our content, people can have access to items or quotes, lines, articles written in not just the languages that they're utilizing, but also contextual things. So to give you an idea, there are only really 3 countries in the world that utilize the term of cup for measurement, right? So America being one of them. I believe it's I wrote it down here because I found this interesting. So the United States, Liberia, and Myanmar are pretty much the only countries in the world that reference cup, where else everywhere else in the world references milliliter. And so if you had an article that mentioned utilizing cups, someone in another country may not necessarily understand the context of that. Like, why would I need, what are the cups being used? So now if you had a wiki function in place for that article in that context, they can say, here's cup, let's translate that to milliliter, since that would be something very common, and we can utilize that measurement of milliliter in the form of cup. So now someone, even though it's just a direct translation, now has more context that they are used to understanding. And so that starts breaking down how you look at what a wiki function is. So to give a better understanding, a wiki function is essentially a function. And if you come from a programming background, you kind of understand the context and use case of what a function could be utilized for, and the necessity and need for it to be a useful tool. So you can put information in there. We can convert numbers with this. We can convert words from this. Whatever your need is. Like I've seen functions for the altering of a year. So if, for example, in the United States, they go by month, day, year, whereas majority of other countries utilize day, month, a year. So
it's the biggest nightmare when you work with international teams. It sucks.
Exactly. Like, imagine telling them May 5th, we're doing something. And then another country like, April 5th, or what is it? April 4th. Cool. We got it. Something like that.
Yes.
But in this regard, you can now have, I've seen the year functions. I've seen a lot of functions in regards. I just saw one earlier where it was like a Caesar cipher, or a translation to Latin, for example. So if you had an English sentence that wanted to go into Latin, you could utilize that function there, and it'll start converting it line by line. So these are really cool ways to kind of implement this. And so the page would be comprised of multiple functions. It wouldn't just be one. Each function would probably be small in use case, but the idea would be to kind of grow with it as we talk longer. So one of the issues with trying to translate a lot of these articles was, and it still is an issue now, that majority is done by the duplication work being done manually. And so when you look at the example that I gave earlier of Hausa, with only 200 contributors a month, there's no way that they're going to make a dent into the 7 million articles that are being written. And so the idea here was, how can we kind of speed this up for them, not just them, but pretty much anybody that wants to translate things. Because the other issue that we have right now is the languages that are translated, they don't really get updated the same way the English articles do. And so the only way to do that is if someone manually goes in and updates it again. And so that repetition becomes very, very difficult to maintain. So the introduction of wiki functions can kind of help and support that. Now, the one challenge that we kind of have with this is, and it's a natural idea to have, especially now in 2025, like the age of AI, like, why aren't we utilizing AI to a stronger degree to kind of translate this? And they're not necessarily completely opposed to the idea, but there is a very big issue with it that I don't think a lot of people think about when they think of projects on the scale of Wikipedia, right? Like, this isn't just 5 users hanging out, or 100 or 1,000.
Oh no, the scale is insane. Yeah,
exactly. And not just the scale, but the breadth of the language, the needs, the necessity. There's a lot that goes involved there. And the problem is, Wikipedia supports almost 3,000 plus languages. And so there is no AI tool
Wow.
that has all of those languages. And so how do you promote that? So you could potentially use AI in some areas like, I don't know, like English, Spanish, Korean. But what do you do when it comes to languages that are not necessarily as widely supported throughout technology and other areas? So wiki functions are a great way for that to basically happen and occur. And that's the bigger, grander idea here. How do you make education more accessible to all? But how do you also, in turn, make sure it's not mistranslating, miscommunicating, or not leaving an entire population of people out of the equation and conversation? And so this is kind of the way that we see this scaling forward, and not just we, them, see this scaling forward. We're just happy to support the ways that we can. But so to kind of add some additional context into, I know I'm talking a lot. I've just realized that. Should I
No,
pause for a
please,
moment?
because I do want to have the background as to what the problem was, and then we can get into like, some of the solutions as much as you can share, because obviously this is still, a project with work. About what the technical solutions, and we can take a high level. Maybe you can give us a little bit of insights as to how they make some of the decisions that they made. But please carry on.
Yeah. So the wiki functions, they can be written in multiple languages, including like Python and JavaScript. So you could go in if you wanted to and create your own function right now for a use case. As of right now, and of course, everything with Wikipedia, open source, right? It's a huge initiative for them. They love contributors. If you can contribute in a meaningful way, I think that's a fantastic way to do it. There are a lot of things that I've even seen that should have functions that don't necessarily have it. Like one example that I was looking for earlier, I believe I was looking for it yesterday, was liters to gallons and gallons to liters. I didn't see anything for that. So that if somebody wants to take that on, you can make that function in no time and kind of pop that up there. But
nice.
You can write it in multiple programming languages. It supports quite a bit. But the other idea is when it comes to like using wiki functions to auto generate like Wikipedia content, they're really focused on the structure of that template and making sure like you're not just using it for like massive scopes, but like you're really focusing one area at a time, one value at a time, to make sure we're getting the right information. So don't overbuild. And to be honest, that's pretty much all the programming. Don't overbuild and over-engineer these functions to where it's not necessarily solving the accurate problems. Make sure you're building it for the right thing. And again, it all comes to one thing. They want to have like one source of truth when it comes to these articles. And that's like a big motivation for this. Like they don't want to change one thing for one language and obscure another, or not necessarily have access to other things. And so there again, AI is not necessarily a part of this, but there is the open possibility for like neural networks, especially for like linguistically complex languages. It can be utilized there, but the focus still remains around structured rule-based functioning. So it can kind of allow human contributors to maintain control over the content that is generated, and of course the feedback loop of a human being able to moderate, ensure the quality, because that's the biggest factor here. A lot of websites, especially now, we can see it all over social media. People are loving to create like AI generated content, whether it's accurate or not. And then when they get called out for it, they try to make adjustments then. When it comes to resources like this, we don't necessarily want to wait for the call out. We want to make sure the quality is there when it's presented. That's why that human check loop is so important here, the feedback loop, to ensure that someone is seeing it, vetting it, and things like that.
Okay. So if I understand it, there was a need there, especially for translating spoken languages, and do it in a crowdsourced way that was open source, right? So that people can contribute. I haven't seen, and maybe you have an example of another function as a service platform out there, because this is, to me, it's a new concept. Where you're allowing, right? Like there isn't very many out. I was thinking there was another translation. The name escapes me. 831. I'll research it, but there isn't very many projects like this that can handle the complexity and the scale and of the importance, like something like Wikipedia, right? Like you're powering information for millions of people, quite literally. And then you incorporate the element of natural language creation and AI. So can you talk to us a little bit about why now? Like, what was it in the tech that they saw that they decided, okay, now is the time for us to do this? Or was it a decision that the design wasn't there before? I'd love to understand a little bit about how that challenge came about from them, and then from this.lab, what decisions you made architecturally and technically to make this a reality, right? What it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I can say that this isn't something that just kind of happened by accident. I think Denny Vandercheck, he for sure led a lot of the want, the need, and knowledge in order like to start implementing this at the scale that it is. But I would say this has constantly been a point of contention where they're like, how do we solve this problem? Because this is a very complex level issue. This isn't something small in the grand scheme of things. Like when you look at this architecturally, like nightmare of a design if you just have to look at it right away. And so now you're solving something for 3,000 plus languages, like and you're talking about millions and millions and millions of users across the globe. Like there's so many logistics that come into play here. But I can say that accessibility is like a big point for Wikipedia. So much so that even one other project that we're helping support and partner with is their Codex design library. It's an entire design library that is fully accessible for everyone. And the idea is that if you see a component on the website, like anyone should be able to access it. It shouldn't just be people that aren't impaired. It should be anyone with any kind of disability or color issues, sight issues, hearing issues, etc. They should all have the ability to see something or like get access to that information and knowledge. So I think this just kind of falls into that grasp of the overall approach and want of making things more accessible by now saying it's no longer quote unquote an impaired issue. It's more along the lines of a language issue. And so someone shouldn't necessarily have to learn another language in order to learn anything. They should have that access out the gate. And so I think this is like a big motivation for that. And so some of the textual, the tech focuses around this also ran in the conversation of accessibility. And so to give you an idea, I'll even preface this, grabbing this. One of the big tech focused ideas on this was to use Vue for a lot of the solution, which I found very interesting initially. And I'm going to give a huge shout out to our VP of delivery, a very good friend, Simona. He even wrote a book on Vue, so plug for him. I keep it by my desk because I'm so proud of him. But he wrote this book on Vue, and he helped do a migration of Vue 2 to Vue 3 within Wikimedia, which was fantastic. And also very complex. But the reason for Vue was it's very easy to adopt if you come from perhaps a different stack, or if you're just learning and you want to contribute. And so with the whole open source models, like how do we make sure that there's a tool that people can adopt to easily to utilize if they wanted to utilize? And so Vue, being one of the considerations, made that possible for quite a few people wanting to join this. Excuse me. And so Vue, no problem. So Vue is one of those considerations as well. They're constantly thinking about what helps and is supported by the masses.
Got you. And when you're thinking about accessibility from that point of view, it's super interesting to me. And then the decision to use Vue for the project even more, like how integrating that automated accessibility testing into Vue projects, that's something that's I'm not super familiar with how that works. Any other technical aspect of it that was interesting to you? And I'd love to just reiterate one more time how you mentioned that the accessibility focus wasn't so much for the people who have the need, but how that should be first and foremost, regardless of whether you're tackling accessibility or a language, different of spoken language issue, which I think all projects should take a look at that really. But any other of the technical aspects of the creation of this that were interesting?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's going to be a ton of stuff just on the back end alone, and the entire project is kind of open source, so you can kind of look at some of those things. But I think the bigger complexity issues has been information from a database being presented accurately throughout different languages. So, for example, like one of the big things in particular was with all of the language that are supported and the user seeing it, some are written from left to right, some are right to left. And so seeing how that translates and is utilized is very complex, especially when you're talking about wiki functions translating things, because what if the translation showcases it in the wrong order, or what if the translation and the values end up changing through that left to right to left process. So these are technical considerations that have to be made as well. But overall, like, once you kind of have the functions in place, a lot of it's sticking to that template rule-based structure to ensure that a lot of it is just kind of living off what's kind of already existing with the NLG. And I can kind of showcase that a little bit if you wanted me to show like how these wiki functions work and things like that.
Would you share your screen and take us help us take a look? And I've shared the link to the case study, which actually does have some good diagrams, some like tabular structure and how they thought about global state management and all that. I'll share it here, but if you don't mind sharing your screen. And sorry about that, folks. My dog had to say hi. I know everybody. His name is Wilson. He's wild, y'all. He's passionate about accessibility. All right, what are we looking at?
So this one is like an intro for a year, right? And so one of the things that I kind of clicked on was for the language of Turkish, right? I don't know anything in regards to Turkish. So to be honest, I just clicked on something random. And so we can kind of just run with this one, right? And so here, if I were to enter a year, let's say 2025, this is basically the function that's being taken in place. And you can see that there's tests involved. And even to kind of share some things, I believe that there are over 2,000 functions currently created. I believe there are 6,500 tests that are currently created for it. So you can also see like, function to test ratio is significantly larger because they have to truly vet these things before they're utilized, right? But if I were to run this function, and it seems like it was written in Python, it's written something in Turkish, which I don't necessarily know what this says. It tells me how fast it was computing, 435 milliseconds. But if I were to translate this, just using the tools that I have, translate selection to English, it tells me that 2025, and then the Roman numerical value for that, is a non-leap year that begins on Wednesday in the Georgian calendar, 25th year of the 3rd millennium AD, 25th year of the 21st century, and the 6th year of the decade 2020. So that right there can kind of show you what this could be potentially utilized for. So maybe if there's something there that we wanted to reference in the article or something along those lines, we could just pop that function in that rule-based structure, and then we can just see this output being shown on the screen for the language of Turkey, for example. But there are more like widespread use cases. Or for example, the one that I gave earlier on cups to milliliters. Like this is a function here, and you can just see this is JavaScript. Basic function, and it's utilizing this numeric value to reference the function. But if I were to enter a number of cups, let's say 2 cups, which is common for baking and things like that, we can kind of see here how everything goes. Oh, something went wrong, but here's the result, 473 milliliters. So we could potentially show the entire value, or more than likely round it, use some kind of math in to kind of round it to give them some round value. Because I mean, I'd like to think that I bake, but there's no way I'm getting like 0.176473 of a milliliter involved there. And in reference to kind of what I said earlier, this is Danny Vrendicik. He's the lead architect for wiki functions in that regard. And if you wanted to see the case study from this thought, you can kind of see our case study here, and of course every other case study that we have on the website and all that good stuff. And our team, amazing developers and engineers that have worked with countless other clients. But you can kind of see here, this is basically what the structure of the function, how it breaks down, and what it looks like. Let me try and zoom in a little bit. Maybe that can kind of help.
I see there is so many, and these are all like public. Well, some of them obviously that was part of the work that your company did, but then this part of it is an open source project. So if I have a function that I want to contribute with, I can do that.
Correct.
Amazing. There is a programming function subcategory, and there is a Python help. So this is super interesting. Helps developers to know how many modules, keywords, symbols, and symbol names Python currently has. That is very cool. I'm going to share that on the link as well. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. Go ahead, Danny. Sorry, I had to share that.
No, I think that kind of breaks it down in a nutshell. So if I wanted to use this function in my template for a Wikipedia article, I would just utilize it there. And then I would make sure that I use something that is accessible to the languages that I want to make sure that has that translation. And as we continue to grow and more functions are created, because of course, like everything on Wikipedia, it is a feature and a use case of what the users in the community contribute. The more that we contribute, the more use cases that they would have for this. So especially with the live stream having so many developers involved, it's a great time for us to kind of contribute, give it back if you want to add some open source contributions by creating some functions and things like that that could be utilized, who knows, by someone on the complete opposite side of the globe. But
That's
that one
amazing.
function may end up impacting hundreds of millions of people that are trying to access resources.
That's awesome. Okay, so what's next for the project? And thank you so much for being so generous and sharing your screen and taking us on a little tour of it.
Yeah.
And then if I am watching this and I actually find it super interesting and want to contribute, how do I do that?
Yeah. So as far as what's next for the project, I can't actually say. That one I can't talk about.
That's all right, but stay tuned. Follow this lab online. Follow Danny Thompson so you know.
Yeah, but they're constantly working on some things. We're working on a project right now that is really, really cool in this realm and should be very impactful in that regard. To try and help, of course, streamline this and build this up. But publicly, we can't announce anything in that regard yet. But there will be something out soon, I believe, like in the next quarter, if I'm not mistaken. But there is something coming out there. As far as this.labs, we're constantly working on some pretty sizable projects. I kind of mentioned how we were just doing something with Vercel, and I believe we're going to continue doing some more items in that regard. As far as like technical content on the media side of this.labs, I believe we have a lot of content coming out in regards to Next.js. We have a lot of Next.js content coming out. We have some more higher level. For me, and this is me being honest, my entire experience level has always been enterprise focused. So we have a lot of enterprise level content that will be coming out as far as from an educational standpoint on scaling systems and things like that. Oh, we have I'm doing a Twitter space with the DocuSign team. They have actually released something new that they just announced recently called the DocuSign App Center. And essentially the idea is that they have this new vision for how workflows look like. And so you can basically go in their App Center and create a workflow where it's essentially like you don't even have to create the full app. It could just be the flow, and people can kind of implement that into another workflow or app, and it can kind of automate quite a bit of their process. Or it's almost like Lego pieces in a sense. Like you could build
like
one Lego piece here,
kind of work,
and
or
kind of
multiple agents working on one.
Yeah, but they see this being very, very big. It's already seen a massive uptick. Dang it, Nick.
Shout out to Nick Taylor. Yes, Nick Taylor. Get him. He needs to tell us all the things.
No. But we're doing some stuff there. We've done a lot already, but I'm doing a Twitter space with them to kind of showcase. They see this being a massive market for developers that is currently undersaturated since it just came out. But already the adoption has been pretty quick with a lot of freelancers and independents that have resources in order to do this. Stripe is a very similar one. I've been doing a lot of work with Stripe, and they have an app center as well. Stripe has a vision where they see the entire dashboard that people utilize, where you see your sales, your revenue, your customers, etc. They eventually see that vision looking like your entire dashboard will have Stripe apps. And for me, when I first joined this, we were doing a lot of this. We've built several apps, one of which is like, I believe like one of the top apps in the App Store. We've built other apps for other clients that are in the top as well. And it's been like a fantastic like revenue generator in that regard. But when I look at like Stripe apps in general, the example that I often give is these aren't people that are utilizing your app to watch an ad to get like a free heart in a game, right? Like you're using enterprise to freelancing or mom and pop shop kind of customers. These are people that you're basically affecting the bottom line of the business. And so because of that, they stick around for a considerable amount of time, but they're also having the kind of budget in order to spend in the areas where it makes sense for the business. So it's not necessarily the same mindset as someone who's going through the Google Play Store or Apple Store to kind of buy an app for their phone. They're thinking more widespread, like how is this affecting my business and my customers? And so because of that, a lot of people have been doing really well in the Stripe App Store, and it's currently at that undersaturated stage, but they see the adoption going pretty high to where they don't see that being the case for the long term. And so we're doing a lot of education around that to kind of help developers skill up, because I'll be honest, I'm not one that necessarily drinks the Kool-Aid or the tea, but when I started seeing the data, I was like, wow, there actually is something here that devs could be potentially benefiting from if they kind of jump on it.
Interesting space. Listen, all these things are important if you want to get paid. So
true, exactly that.
If you want to, so definitely like read the data, read the studies, and I didn't know Stripe was doing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, from an educating developer standpoint, they're definitely trying, but stuff like that, like completely over my radar. And then when you see it, like, well, this totally makes sense. Like these are businesses that are buying stuff that help either generate revenue or it helps them transfer data from one side to the other in order to utilize it within the business. It totally makes sense why this would be a thing. But until it was explained to me, it never registered. It was never even on my radar. So that's kind of why I'm really into developer education in the ways that we're doing it today, but also through conferences and meetups and events and things like that.
Yes, and we're going to talk about your conference, and we're going to talk about your meetup as well before we go. But I have to, because we have to have this speculative moment here. Because Lawrence is with people. Listen, Lawrence, we're a generation away from agentic AI microservices. A generation, I think this will happen. Like, what's a generation to you? Like, I hope to see this in my lifetime, Lawrence, like in the next 2 to 3 years. What do you think, Danny?
I can tell you, I watched an interview with Satya recently, and he basically said that Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, like he doesn't know who I am, like on a first name basis. Like, what am I doing? Sorry, I did the same mistake on the podcast, and
world best is here, okay?
Yeah,
it's fine.
I would say that in that regard, he said that he truly believes that it could be potentially the era of the death of SaaS, where agentic AI will be replacing that now. And so he kind of sees that industry growing. Of course, some could say, maybe he has some stake in the game where he believes this and that. But I mean, we're already seeing it more and more. It would be really hard pressed to not think that it's going to continue expanding. I mean, I've seen some things that literally blow my mind in regards to AI, and especially agents. Like I can tell you one that I saw in Nashville, Tennessee. The person created an entire agent business, and he sold it to a debt collection call center. And essentially the idea was the agents were calling people that owe debts. And when it comes to call centers in general, they're considered a transitionary role. So no one really kind of sets out to kind of get these roles. Maybe it's in between jobs or something like that. And because of that, they have
it's like a temp job,
and it's some of the highest turnover in the employment industry. So majority of call centers overhire 3 to 4x in order to maintain, because they know 3 to 4 weeks is like the average lifespan. And so because of that, these AI bots, number one, they help reduce overhead in that regard for the business, right? So they're still having to overhire. You can't replace that. But the other thing that they saw was some of the numbers were showing that they were having a higher rate of collection compared to the human counterparts. And the humans didn't realize that they were talking to an agent. And so because of that, that kind of spurred on this whole, I believe for the most part, like they have like 1,000 seats in this call center in Dallas, in Nashville right now, that they're collecting, and they're actually doing a really decent job, oftentimes getting a higher rate of collection than the human counterpart. So because of that, it's already there. And so this is just like one example of the multiple that are out there where we can kind of see the growth.
I love that story. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a job that's definitely not a thankless job. I mean, I guess you get paid. Listen, I worked at a call center before, and I don't recommend it. It's soul-sucking work. The folks that are joining us in the chat, if you have seen the use of agents in something interesting, like what Danny just shared, please share, because listen, we're here to learn. Some of these things, like when I saw this case study from your company, I was like, what? They're doing what? With what? Because like multiple languages is a reality of my life. Like I work with international communities. English is not my first language. So all these things I feel like are so top of mind to me. I was actually surprised that I'd not seen it. So that's super, super interesting. Please share your examples. While you're sharing your examples, I'm going to read other predictions that we have. Besco says that, yes, with our RLVL training, they're coming very soon. Lawrence said tomorrow. Okay, Lawrence, I appreciate it. But it's always great to keep with that thought leadership. What you said about like watching, for example, Satya's, and listen, we can call him Satya. It's our best name too. Because it is true. These are the leaders of industry who are actually like, they already know. They already know what's happening tomorrow. Something about agentic models that can be used for specialized tasks like deep scale R1.5B. Say more, best codes, like what type of specialized task? And I like this concept of small agentic models. The conversation I had yesterday, and I have to link it for you folks to watch. It was with actually a CEO of a company that's creating pipelines for agent creation, and understood a lot more about what it costs to build these things and why it's important to have a good infrastructure and scalability as top of mind when you're building them. So I will link that because that was an interesting conversation of that. James says, most useful I've seen was in some open source software documentation via search box. Listen, these are the core maintainers don't have time to pop in discussions and answer questions that are in the docs. So if there is an agent that can do that for you, like that is awesome. So yeah, I super appreciate that. For example, math. Oh, well, this is true. All right, that's a clear example. That's true. Best codes. And then something from Lawrence about how agents are going to make games NPCs smart enough to learn your gaming tendencies and adjust on the fly. That's another. Gamification agents in game and software development for games. Is that a thing? Has someone seen that out there? Definitely, great idea. That's very, very interesting. Very interesting. All right, thank you for sharing those. Danny, you have to tell us about your conference and your community. Let's start with the community. Let's start with the meetups because you host this pretty frequently, Larry. I'd love to know what the topics are. How can people attend? How much it costs? I know the answer to this is my favorite answer. But please do tell us. About this community education efforts you have.
Yeah, when it comes to meetups, I now live in Dallas, Texas, and we do technical meetups pretty much every 2 weeks. But I kind of like everything that I'm involved with, I'm a very, very big proponent in educational resources being accessible to all. So anytime we do a meetup that is technical, there's always an in-person option as well as an online option. And of course, 100% free. We don't take money in any way, shape, or form. That's not necessarily our motivations behind it. And I'm very proud that we've built up a very massive community in the Dallas area, a very active one and very supportive one. The people that come out to kind of support everybody is just incredible. And you're talking everybody from absolute beginners to CEOs of organizations. Like we had quite a few CEOs at the last one.
Nice.
And so our meetup group is called Dallas Software Developers Group. You can go to dallassoftwaredevelopers.org if you want to find out more about that. But we also do a cohort program that, again, is 100% for free. We don't charge anything for it. And our cohort, it's not necessarily a boot camp. We don't educate there. But the idea is we pair developers of all stages on a team together, and they're being guided by a professional software developer in the industry. And over the course of 6 weeks, they're building a project that's actually worth talking about. And so we've had teams in the past build AI facial recognition applications to create secure workspaces. So if somebody tried to like log in your computer that wasn't necessarily the user, it would take their picture, put it in a security console where security could obviously access it to see who tried to access your computer without you being there, and it would refuse them access into the machine. Things like that, like stuff that if you're trying to get a job in tech, like an employer would love to hear about. But on top of that, it pushes your technical abilities because maybe you up to that point only built front-end applications that didn't necessarily have a back-end, or maybe you built back-end applications and front-end applications, full-stack apps, but they weren't necessarily super complex. And so this can kind of help guide you into challenging yourself, but also really just extending your technical ability with the team and learning how a team works well together and things of that nature. And we've had a lot of success, a lot of people landing jobs out of it. And of course, we don't monetize it. We don't get a referral fee or a kickback. We don't want that. We're just there for the community. And so we're we're really, really happy that we're able to support it the way that we can. And of course, this group is what led to us creating the Commit Your Code conference. And the conference in particular, we basically created an entire tech conference in 2.5 months, where the idea was making tech accessible to all. Like, the idea came to me when I was speaking at a conference, and someone's like, Danny, it's my dream to go to that conference. I just can't afford to go. And what got me about that in particular was this person that said this comment. They were in tech for 7 years at that point. So it's not like it's a junior that just learned how to code that can't get the money from work. It's someone that works in the industry. But when you start thinking about going to a tech conference, it's not just the conference. It's the flight to the conference, the hotel, the meals, all that adds up tremendously. And so I said, what could we ever do in a way that could make this accessible for all? And big shout out to this.labs even for that one, because they helped out in a tremendous way in regards to like a lot of the swag and the educational resources and getting some valuable speakers and things like that. But for that conference, we had 64 speakers, and 100% of all ticket sales were donated to charity. We donated 50% of all the ticket sales to Free Code Camp to make sure that tech stays accessible for all. And 50% were donated to St. Jude's Children's Hospital to make sure we can kind of help in one way, shape, or form, ensure that children get health care, but also they'll never see a bill if they're going in for like cancer treatment and things like that. So I thought there were phenomenal missions to kind of support in that regard.
100%. That's remarkable. Okay, so if I'm watching this and I want to go to the conference, when is it going to be? Have you picked the dates yet?
Yes, we have picked the dates. It's September 25th and 26th. It will be in Dallas, Texas again. And it should be good. As of right now, the buzz has been tremendous. We haven't even released ticket sales as of yet, things like that. But it's definitely on the radar. Pretty soon, actually. We're actually revamping the entire website internally. And so hopefully within like the next few weeks, we'll have that up. And once that's up, we will. And then, of course, the CFP is still open. So if you're interested in speaking, that is there. Now, I will say this. We don't have the budget as of yet to cover speaker travel. It's a stretch goal. It's something that I'm trying so hard to do. I really am.
You want to be a hero? You're an enterprise right now. You're a CEO, you're a CIO, you're a CTO, looking for a worthy use of your marketing money. Sponsor this conference. Be the hero. Sponsor the speakers. There you go. I'm going to share the session, guys, so that you can submit your talks too. Talk to me about what kind of talks you're looking for, so that people who are watching know what to submit.
So I will really strongly suggest that if you wanted to speak, please do something technical, because I can say like 85% of the talks submitted have all been soft skill, which is great in some doses. But for us, the strategy that I have around this conference is different, I think, than most conferences. I know we all enjoy the soft skill talk. It makes us feel good and we get skills out of it. But I think the other idea is we're trying, and everybody knows, a lot of companies during the pandemic basically slashed their education budgets. Prior to the pandemic, almost every company was like, yeah, go to this conference, we'll pay for it, we'll fly you out, all this good stuff. Now it's very difficult for a lot of organizations to justify that, especially if you're not in big tech. Like if you're in, insurance industry, or you're working for some food organization, it's really hard to get that budget. And so for here, the idea was, we're advertising this because our tickets start at $30. We don't have a goal to make money. Our goal is just, can we cover food for 2 days? Because even if you buy a $30 ticket, we cover your food for both days of the conference. So we provide the meals. And I'm so proud, during the conference, we were going viral for the food spread that we had and all the options. Made me feel
I saw the pictures. I have mad FOMO. And then I saw the food, and then the FOMO got very.
We definitely know how to make a penny stretch, I'll tell you that much. And we went through a logistical nightmare getting it done, but I'm so proud that we were able to get it done. But $30. And so for me, I advertise it to these organizations saying, hey, we are having this conference. We have 64 speakers. You don't have to really dip into your education budget at all to send your developer to this. And we had a lot of companies, especially in the Dallas area, send their teams to the conference. And so even the teams are like, we haven't been to a conference in person since 2018. And so that was a great way for them to kind of get back into it. And hopefully they can see value out of it. But at that price point, it's hard for a company not to justify it. Plus, when we show them the agenda where it's like, this is all technical, there's no excuse, then the company kind of gets behind it. So that's the strategy for us that we see. Number one, bringing the companies together, bringing the community together. And I think that's going to be a big, big one. And yes, Lawrence in the comment section, he was one of our premier Java speakers at the conference. So the conference last year was 3 tracks. This year it's 4. Last year it was Java, JavaScript, and cloud. And this
Okay.
year we are adding .NET, and we have a stretch goal to add a leadership track. So
like that.
my goal is to have like technical leaders like CTO, CEO, CFOs of organizations give talks on how we can build leaders within. So like maybe you're an engineering manager that wants to be a director, or maybe you're a director that wants to go VP or CTO. What does that look like? And so a lot of those talks will kind of cater to that. And to be honest, it wasn't on my radar. It was so requested, though, highly requested. So that's kind of why it's in the gears of my mind churning. I haven't committed to that one yet, but it is on the planning stage if we can kind of execute it at a high level. But the execution is my criteria. Like, even if we're a $30 conference, it has to be executed at a level where no one feels like they're discounting their experience for that. And that was the biggest feedback that we got, that no one felt like it was a cheap conference or a community conference or just a hangout. They all felt like it was a conference at a very high level. And so to me, we're trying to continue that forward.
Amazing. Okay, folks. So you have an opportunity to attend. If you're in the Dallas area and you're looking for a meetup that's going to help you upskill, get your next job, like, and be part of something great. Like, I love this idea of educational cohorts and building real-time things that you can actually take then that are part of your portfolio. That's absolutely, that's epic. And then, hey, commit your code conference. Like, we gotta go. I see on the chat, Nick is going, Lawrence is going. Well, I gotta go. I'm gonna submit my talk. Let's submit some technical talks from. If you are in the audience and you're watching this and you're wanting to submit a proposal, definitely do it. Happy to read it for you. Not that, listen, my opinion, whatever, but happy to help you with it too. I know sometimes it just takes a little bit of like an extra set of eyes. So Nami Kuro has already subbed. He's already submitted. Suck. What's up?
Let's go. I know at the end of February, the speaker committee is going to kind of look over everything. And for the person asking the conference link, just go to commityourcode.com and you'll find all the information. And I believe we have 30 speakers selected already. And I believe we're aiming to have somewhere close to 100 for the whole event.
That's impressive. Such a great, and labor of love. I know you're not getting paid for this, Danny. You're doing it because you care. I have to have you come back because I feel like we can have a whole other conversation on how you got started in tech. You're a career changer too. Hey, nothing against you folks that follow traditional paths, but career changer is always going to have a near place in my heart because the hustle is real. To get to the level where you are director of technology at a company that's so impactful, you have to come back and tell us a bit about your story because it's amazing.
I'm always happy to do it, and I'm glad I'm able to make an impact at organizations like this.labs, and the fact that we get to work with other enterprise level organizations and like really making an impact everywhere. It's just been a blast, and it's a great organization. Our CEO Tracy Lee, she's phenomenal. She is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
We're doing some really, really interesting stuff. So highly recommend checking it out.
Amazing. All right, Danny, you want to leave us with something? All the folks that are watching here, they're going to join the meetup if they're in Dallas area. They're going to go to commit your code. If you're a boss and you want to be the hero, you better commit some of that boss money to sponsoring the conference, sponsoring the speakers. It sounds like it's going to be a great time. I need to get to it because I want to go see my friends, and it looks like all the cool folks are going to be going to commit your code. So, hey.
That was the best feedback. Even Roselle, she left feedback. Like, it seems like all my favorite people on Twitter are there. It was definitely like a focus for me because selfishly I wanted to meet them, and so I invited them all.
Same. This is why I'm happy to do this. I'm like, yeah, I can invite them.
Yeah, but for us, like, it was one of the most diverse events I think people can go to. One of the best feedbacks that I got was a woman speaker. She was at the event and she said, normally I'm the only person that uses the women's restroom at a conference, and like here I had to wait in line, and she's like, I'm not used to that. And so we have a massive variety of people, backgrounds, ideas, topics. It's worth the effort to come out.
I love it. Okay, folks, so I hope to see you there. Listen, this is like the ultimate. You get all the infinity stones if you do this. You watch this stream and you go to Wikimedia and you decide to contribute a function, and then you go to the conference. Like, please let me know if you did any of those things because I'm always delighted. I will send you some swag. Your impact, Danny, is unbelievable. And thank you so much for taking the time of coming by and sharing what this.lab has been up to. I'm going to go back into the notes and drop all the links to all the podcasts, but they are sparkle and sprinkled throughout the chat. But please have a listen at this Labs podcast. Have a listen at Danny's podcast. And all right, we'll have to see you soon. You'll have to come back. We got to have more time.
Yeah, if you want to see anything that I'm involved with, go to dthompsondev.com, and everything that I'm involved with is there.
All right, beautiful. I'm going to share that link as well here so that folks who are watching can go ahead and bookmark it. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate you. Where are you going next? Anything else that's coming sooner than the conference where you're going to be speaking? You're going to have a Twitter space. If you already have it, would you drop the link in the chat now so that folks can see it? If not, I'll find it and I'll drop it. No worries.
I'll do that. But the only other thing that we're doing is April 13th, we're doing a meetup in New York. And I think it's going to be like one of the largest. We haven't fully announced it yet. I think the announcements are going out like next week or something. But
Nice.
We have got the space confirmed. Everything is confirmed. I got a couple of guests coming in with me that we won't be announcing just yet. But they are some pretty impactful people that I think everybody would love. You know both of them, so I know you do it. Yeah, so at least two are definitely confirmed to come with me to the event, but some very, very big names. So we're trying to do like a spur of the moment, big, huge meetup in New York where we can kind of bring the whole community together and get people excited.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, well, hey, watch out, New York. Danny and the community are coming for you. So that's awesome. All right, Danny, I'll let you go back to work. Thank you so much for being here, being so generous to your time. Folks, don't forget to go ahead and check out the case study I'm going to share one more time. Danny, you're the best. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
How great is he? I mean, for real. And if you don't know Danny, definitely take a look at the website. I know there's been a few spaces where he's written about his experience and like his entire career is so inspiring. And if you are watching this because you just happen upon the GitHub channels and you're like, I'm just now learning, I'm just like, Danny's story is just such a great representation of what it takes, like when you put in the work and like you get to this level and then you get to give back. It's unbelievable. So don't be discouraged if you're just getting started. We all had to start. Nobody was born with a laptop in their hand, okay? We all had to start somewhere. And you are, even if you're new to tech right now, it's like the best time to be in tech, honestly. And the next best time is going to be tomorrow and the day after. So stick around. Thank you so much for being here. If you didn't catch it at the beginning of the transmission, when we were talking about agents and we were talking about giving that preview of GitHub Copilot agent on VS Code, we also share about a little giveaway that we're going to be doing. And I guess it's a giveaway, not really, kind of. But if you go to gh.io/roses and leave us a poem, you might get access to Project Spark. And if you haven't seen what Project Spark is, basically, it's going to be our new best friend. You tell it what you wanted to build, and it's not only going to give you the idea, show you what kind of code, make suggestions programmatically about how you should build it. It's going to make it for you. So you can build quick apps from scratch. Right now, it's a closed beta. It's on preview, technical preview. So they're hard to come by. So if you're interested in that, just go by that URL, gh.io/roses, and leave us a little comment. Listen, if you're not poetic, it doesn't matter. Just leave a comment so that your name is in there, and maybe you get selected to enter this technical preview. And I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to be back here for Open Source Friday tomorrow, my friends. And it's going to be a 2-for-1 because I'll be joined by my amazing coworker, that lady Dev Kadisha, who, by the way, has just been selected as one of the top voices on ML and AI. So shout out to my girl. She's doing great things. And we have an incredible guest tomorrow. We're going to be talking to Angie Jones from Block, and she's going to be talking about Goose. So if you're interested in AI agents, if you're interested in things that are going to help you code faster, come by and see the open source options for that tomorrow at Open Source Friday. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate your time and your patience. My dog loves you. I love you. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care now. Stay here so you can watch. If you missed this news, because these are the best news ever, friends, Copilot for free in VS Code. See you tomorrow.